Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Hashim Barraq. I welcome you to the 7th Special Interest Group session on artificial intelligence. I'll be your host for the day. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, we run a series of technology sessions, including AI, cloud, cybersecurity, and IoT each week. And then they go on and repeat after a 4-week cycle. AI का last session 4 weeks ago था. We have had 6 sessions. Our session we have focused on different use cases. A quick intro about SPINNLABS for those of us. I saw a couple of new faces, new attendees. We are the innovation lab of SPS. SPS is a technology company based out of Rockville, Maryland. And in SPINNLABS, we are helping academia bridge the gap that they have towards the industry. And this platform helps us do that by giving a platform for all of us from both sides of the industry and academia to come together and discuss a topic. We do have a question and answer session at the end of the talk, and if you have any comments or questions, you can always make use of that time slot. This session key recordings are made available after the session on our website as well as YouTube channel. So in case you have to leave early or somebody you know would like to listen in, you can always share that link. Jafar, who is our academic outreach coordinator, you can always reach out to him for any request that you may have. Uske alawa, we are on social media, so you can also reach us through pretty much all of the social media channels. The agenda for today's talk is so typically we have 3 parts to our each technology session, where we have Dr. Arshad Ali, who is the president of SPINNLABS. Previously, he has been the executive director of Higher Education Commission, and he would share with us some of his opening thoughts and comments on the session. Next, I'll be sharing with you some of the exciting happenings within the payment ecosystem and how AI is playing a role within the payment ecosystem. Especially, I will be focusing on the payment frauds and how AI can help us stop that. And I'll be sharing with you one of the really effective solutions that out there is in the market, in which we are using to help our customers reduce payment fraud. You can always learn that solution to bring it out to the customers also with us. Next, we'll have the discussion session. Just if you have any questions or curious to what would. So when it comes to payment ecosystem and AI, before I jump into it, I just want to quickly share as to why is this important for all of us, especially those of us who are in technology. हम लोग आजकल we're not just implementers of technology, but also we consume technology. In the sense, in COVID, most of the banking transactions have gone online, or nobody mostly prefers to sort of step out and go into a bank and conduct transactions. Uski wajah ye hai कि because convenience and the ease with which you can access these sort of the digital channels and the instant transactions that you can conduct over these channels. So what that also means is that we're also exposing ourselves to a lot of risk that comes with those instant transactions. And that risk is primarily in the form of payment fraud. मैं आपके साथ पहले थोड़ा सा पेमेंट इकोसिस्टम शेयर कर दूंगा, just with the use case of a credit card example कि अगर आप credit card से purchase करने जाते हैं, तो who are the players within the ecosystem? Most of us, we see those name tags every day, but how do they fit in within the payment ecosystem and what role do they play? And I'll share with you some of the payment frauds that are happening and what are the AI opportunities in payment fraud. किस तरह AI models payment fraud, specifically real-time payment fraud को रोक सकते हैं. And last, I'll share with you one of the most effective solutions that's out there, or effective से मुराद ये होती है कि there are 2 metrics that are used in the industry. एक your fraud hit rate और एक कहा जाता है false positives. And I'll explain these to you in a minute. So we're launching this center of expertise around safer payments. And if any one of you would like to be a part of this opportunity, you're welcome to reach out to us. I'll explain to you, Kisme, what are the various things that you can do within this Safer Payment Center of Excellence. I wanted to keep this session interactive, so I'll share with you as to what are the players in the payment ecosystem. Can you all see my screen right now? I just want to make sure to slide.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So for example, मैं आपके साथ I'll share with you using a credit card example. So if any one of us goes to a shop or maybe a fuel station and makes a transaction and then pays it through credit card, so what happens as soon as you give the credit card to the shopkeeper or the fuel station? So I'll start with the example, and let's say if this is a bank, and for example, HBL is a pretty big bank in Pakistan, and I am an HBL user. तो HBL जो है वो मुझे सबसे पहले एक कार्ड इशू किया हुआ है HBL, and for our example, let's just say it is a credit card. HBL is here in the payment ecosystem is known as the issuing bank. Issuing bank आपको credit card issue करता है, and then you know this is a typical John, and जब आप जाते हैं किसी शॉप पे, let's say you go on to buy an ice cream, ठीक है? आप आइसक्रीम लेने गए एक शॉप पे, and because you want to make a payment through a credit card, what you do is you give your credit card to the shopkeeper. वो जो shopkeeper है वो उसको insert करेगा एक POS machine के अंदर, ठीक है? This guy here is known as the merchant or the shopkeeper, और ये आपको ये merchandise दे रहा है, the one that you want to purchase. This is a POS machine. In a brick and mortar shop, जो physical shop होती हैं, these are POS. Online में यहाँ पे gateways होते हैं, payment gateways, which essentially play the same role at a high level as a POS machine. इस POS machine के अंदर एक SIM होती है जो कि through GSM network message भेजती है to a bank which is known as the merchant bank, or in a more payment ecosystem language, acquiring bank. ये वो बैंक होता है जो कि इस मर्चेंट को बैंकिंग सर्विसेज दे रहा है. सो दे कुड बी एनी बैंक. सो लेट्स जस्ट से इन आवर एग्जांपल दिस कुड बी बैंक अल्फला लिमिटेड, ठीक है? तो आपने क्रेडिट कार्ड दिया, शॉपकीपर ने पीओएस मशीन में इंसर्ट किया, उसने मैसेज भेजा बैंक अल्फला के एक्वायरिंग सिस्टम को. दैट सिस्टम विल सेंड अ मैसेज टू द पेमेंट टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज, जिसके अंदर मास्टर कार्ड, वीजा, we have got Amex, Diners and so on. So ये जो पेमेंट कंपनीज हैं जिनके कार्ड्स बैंक्स इशू करते हैं, what they do is they connect the merchant or the acquiring bank with the issuing bank. So mind you, they play a lot more role than this, but for the sake of our example, मैं इसको जरा simplify करके बता दूं. जब मैसेज आपके वीजा या मास्टर कार्ड से इशूइंग बैंक के पास आता है, तो इशूइंग बैंक्स फॉर अ क्रेडिट कार्ड ट्रांजैक्शन वुड हैव अ सिस्टम व्हिच इज नोन एज द authorization system. This authorization system is essentially a piece of software with some underlying hardware जहाँ पे deploy होता है, and that system tells or that system determines कि ये जो transaction यहाँ से होके आ रही है, is this transaction legitimate or not, and उसके लिए there are certain primary checks जो कि system use करता है. For example, ये जो issuing bank है, ये by the way this is the same bank as this HBL. ठीक है? अब HBL क्या करेगा, यहाँ पे चेक करेगा कि पिन नंबर करेक्ट है, कार्ड नंबर is accurate, forged तो नहीं है, does the person have credit limit or not, and similar other checks. And if those checks are positive, so this authorization system So the issuing bank will send a message to the Master or Visa card company, and that message will be relayed back to the merchant bank कि भाई आप इस transaction को जाने दें या रोक दें. वो जो हमें messages आते हैं कि your transaction has been declined or has been processed. And then that merchant bank sends back to the POS machine कि अब आप इसकी रसीद print कर दें. And that's how you make a typical transaction. This whole process is known as authorization phase. Is authorization phase में there is essentially no movement of money happening. For me as a customer, I'm getting the merchandise, but अभी तक merchant को पैसे नहीं मिले. अभी तक वो authorizations हो चुकी हैं जिसके through उसको पैसे मिलेंगे. Now I'll explain to you what happens after this process. At the end of the day, depending on countries and geographies and banking systems, after a certain time, there's a settlement process. Settlement process is the phase where actual transfer of money takes place. And the players that are involved here are essentially the same, except for an addition of payment processors. Payment processors authorization system may be involved होते हैं. They are the sort of the front end payment processors. But जो payment processors back end पे involved होते हैं, जिनको back end payment processor कहा जाता है, they essentially facilitate this movement of money from the issuing bank to the merchant bank. तो होगा क्या कि merchant at the end of the day, let's say, he will send a summary of transactions to his merchant बैंक. ये मर्चेंट बैंक जो है EMVs या पेमेंट प्रोसेसर्स जो बैक एंड पेमेंट प्रोसेसर्स होते हैं, उनके थ्रू इशूइंग बैंक के साथ तमाम ट्रांजैक्शंस को सेटल करते हैं. होता क्या है कि जब इन द फर्स्ट फेज ऑथराइजेशन हो रही होती है, तो अ होल्ड इज प्लेस्ड ऑन द परचेजर्स क्रेडिट कार्ड. इफ आई वेंट टू परचेज, तो अगर आप फौरन से अपनी क्रेडिट कार्ड ट्रांजैक्शन और क्रेडिट कार्ड स्टेटमेंट चेक करेंगे ना, तो यू विल सी पेंडिंग ट्रांजैक्शंस में वो चीज आ जाएगी, बट वो अभी पोस्टेड ट्रांजैक्शंस में नहीं जाएगी, बिकॉज अभी तक मर्चेंट ने वो चीज क्लेम नहीं की होती अपने मर्चेंट बैंक के थ्रू इशूइंग बैंक से. पर जब मर्चेंट बैंक क्लेम कर लेता है थ्रू अ पेमेंट प्रोसेसर एंड अदर प्लेयर्स, तो इशूइंग बैंक जो है वो ट्रांजैक्शन वो पैसे रिलीज कर देता है टू द मर्चेंट बैंक. मर्चेंट बैंक इसमें अपनी फीस रख के वो मर्चेंट के अकाउंट में पैसे ट्रांसफर करता है. And this is sort of the settlement process that is happening. यहाँ पे all of these players, and if I were to summarize, so we have got banks, we have got credit card technology companies जैसे Visa, Master, and so on. We have got the what इनको जनरली कहा जाता है इंडिपेंडेंट सेल्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, जो कि ये POS टर्मिनल्स देती हैं, जो कि गेटवेज देती हैं, which are essentially the resellers of banks, और वो banks की merchant services को resell करते हैं, either becoming a reseller or independently. इसी तरह there are payment processors involved. And few more players वो gateways के केस में वो involve हो जाते हैं. And all of these players they make up the payment ecosystem. और बज़ाहिर जो transaction हमारे सामने 1, 2 या 3 सेकंड में in the case of this credit card example हो रही होती है, all of these players are playing a role in facilitating the authorization and settlement of that transaction. I'll shift gears here and यहाँ पे अब I'll take your attention towards the payment frauds that are happening. For example, if you are in Islamabad and you have been a regular user and one fine morning आपको मैसेज आता है कि आपका कार्ड जो है वो ब्राजील में यूज हो रहा है. So how does that happen and how the systems stop that? So there are various ways that could happen. Maybe आपका जो credit card का data है that has been stolen from your own issuing bank. Maybe you went on to make a purchase from an online shop that was sort of not really legitimate, and the transaction data from that shop may have been sold on the dark web, or similar other fraud schemes जो होती है उनके through ये data leak हो जाता है. And when that data is in the hands of somebody that you would not want to, there's a chance that they would conduct a transaction which affects you as the original card holder. अब यहाँ पे ये जो पेमेंट ट्रांजैक्शंस होती हैं, अगर तो लेट्स से पुराने जमाने में जब पुराने जमाने के आई मीन इन द रीसेंट पास्ट जो चेक्स होते थे, चेक्स का ज्यादा यूज होता था, कार्ड्स इतने नहीं होते थे. कार्ड्स के केस में सॉरी चेक्स के केस में there is a delay of 2 to 3 days, especially अगर बैंक सेम नहीं है. And what that allows is कि वो बैंक्स को एक ability देता है कि आप जरा तसल्ली से चेक कर लें, चेक के signatures ठीक हैं, डेट ठीक है, पैसे हैं कि नहीं है, and you have all the time to make a decision as to ये transaction legitimate है या fraudulent है. However, in the case of real-time transactions, अगर credit card के through हो रही है, and in fact I'll explain to you the channels also. तो आप credit card के through कर सकते हैं, debit card के through कर सकते हैं. You can pay money to electronic funds transfer. ये आप मोबाइल बैंकिंग के थ्रू भी कर सकते हैं, आप इंटरनेट बैंकिंग के थ्रू भी कर सकते हैं. फिर वायर ट्रांसफर्स होते हैं जो कि ज़्यादातर हाई वैल्यू या इंस्टीट्यूशनल ट्रांसफर्स के लिए यूज होते हैं. फिर P2P पेमेंट इकोसिस्टम भी है जिसमें आपके पास ये सोशल मीडिया या इसके थ्रू, यहाँ पे तो अभी इट्स स्टार्टिंग आउट, बट we've got WhatsApp, we have got Facebook, and all these other companies जो कि P2P payments, Zelle है outside of Pakistan, that's pretty common. Now most of these channels are either real time or near to real time payment transactions. In real-time payment transaction, the total time that you have could be 1 or 2 or 3 seconds max. And in that time, your payment checking system has to make a decision whether this transaction is legitimate or a fraudulent transaction. And that is where the AI technologies come in, because if it is a human being or the machine learning technologies come in, if it's a human being and there are thousands of transactions happening each second, it is of course impossible to check all those transactions. You may be able to check 1 or 2, even if you are a really 40-year-old fraud analyst, that's not possible. And that's where AI or machine learning, or the opportunities in AI or machine learning, come in. And the reason this has been very successful, this has been very critical for the payment companies, is because these models have reduced the false positives as well as improved the fraud hit rate. फॉल्स पॉजिटिव क्या है? फॉल्स पॉजिटिव ये है कि मेरे पास एक ट्रांजैक्शन आती है और मैं एज अ बैंक उस ट्रांजैक्शन को रोक देता हूँ जस्ट बिकॉज के वो ट्रांजैक्शन जो है मुझे मेरा रेगुलेटर कह रहा है कि इतनी अमाउंट से ऊपर की ट्रांजैक्शन रोक देनी है एक बंदे की, या मुझे अपनी बैंक की पॉलिसी कह रही है, बट एट द सेम टाइम वो ट्रांजैक्शन लेजिटिमेट है, मेरा जो कस्टमर है दैट वांट्स टू कंडक्ट दैट ट्रांजैक्शन, बट बिकॉज ऑफ some checks and balances or because of the counter fraud system जो मैं यूज कर रहा हूँ, मैं उस ट्रांजैक्शन को डिक्लाइन कर देता हूँ. उसका एक बिजनेस इम्पैक्ट ये है कि कस्टमर्स की जो कस्टमर एक्सपीरियंस है दैट गेट्स अफेक्टेड अ लॉट. एंड प्रॉब्ली if my credit card stops my transaction that I want to conduct 2-3 times, I would be immediately starting to look at other card providers. So a good AI or machine learning solution always has very, very low false positives. If you want to assess the counterfeit solution, that's what you look at. And the other primary aspect that you look at is the fraud hit rate. How much fraud are you detecting? Ideally, the most ideal ratio is a single digit ratio. So let's say for every one fraud detected, one transaction that was fraudulent that was detected, you want to have, let's say, a single digit false positive. So it could be 9, it could be 7 or 3 and so on. But anything more than single digit is something that nowadays the players in the payment ecosystem frown upon. And they want the models to be so good that you achieve these kind of numbers. The reason this all matters for the payment companies, of course, the customer experience, But once a fraud happens, that affects the 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 profit and loss and the balance sheet of the banking company or the payment service provider. जो भी fraud होगा, मेरा कार्ड कहीं पे यूज होता है, तो the bank or the card issuer will have to absorb that fraud amount. And so payment companies are always worried कि how to reduce this fraud, and they want to make sure कि उनकी जो fraud losses है वो कम से कम हो. यहाँ तक I'll take a moment and stop in case there is a question or query. And if not, so we'll move on. Now let's talk about the AI opportunities in fraud. कि AI models जो हैं वो fraud कैसे detect करने में help कर सकते हैं, and mainly in the context of real-time payments, because that's where AI and machine learning power really kicks in. So first thing is कि जब real-time transactions हो रही हैं, तो there are two ways you can create these AI models, of course, supervised and unsupervised. But a good AI model will make use of not just supervised learning, but unsupervised learning also. And the reason this is important is that supervised, ठीक है, you have the transaction data, आपको regulator ने दे दिया anonymized करके, and you create a model and that has a high hit rate. But those transactions, sort of the outliers, जो कि supervised model में detect नहीं हो सकेंगे. तो इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट कि एक अच्छा एआई मॉडल जो कि फ्रॉड को डिटेक्ट कर रहा है उसके अंदर इन दोनों तरह के मॉडल्स को इंक्लूड किया जाए. द सेकंड थिंग वुड बी बिहेवियरल एनालिटिक्स. बिहेवियरल एनालिटिक्स इसलिए जरूरी है, फॉर एग्जांपल if I am somebody who is traveling quite often and versus somebody who does not travel at all, linear rules would probably have a negative impact. For example, अगर एक लीनियर रूल ये है कि बाय डिफॉल्ट आपने तमाम अकाउंट होल्डर्स की जो है ना ट्रांजैक्शन आउटसाइड पाकिस्तान रोक देनी है. तो इफ समबडी हु इज ट्रैवलिंग आउटसाइड एंड दे हैव टू ट्रैवल इन इमरजेंसी and they are in let's say London and they are trying to make a transaction और आपका कार्ड नहीं चल रहा, so that has an adverse effect. But what if आपका जो ये transaction go or no go wala authorization system takes into account the behavioral analytics, sort of okay, this person lives in Pakistan but इसका जो permanent address है वो तो लंदन का है, तो okay, he has not traveled any time previously, but since he has a permanent address in London, so let's allow this transaction. Of course, ये मैं एक simplified example दे रहा हूँ. You would consider a number of other variables, transaction की amount क्या है, time क्या है, जिस point of sale से transaction हो रही है उसके अपने analytics क्या है, क्या उस point of sale पे पहले बहुत सारा fraud detect हुआ है. Maybe if there is, so you will go ahead and stop that transaction and so on. So behavioral analytics जहाँ पे financial and non-financial data को सामने रख के the model makes the decision whether the payment is a fraudulent one or not. That's another AI opportunity, or that's another facet of a good AI model. The third thing that is important in creating an AI model to detect fraud is the embedding of domain knowledge. और इससे मेरी मुराद ये है कि हर पेमेंट चैनल के इंडिविजुअल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स होते हैं. एटीएम के थ्रू जो नॉर्मली ट्रांसफर्स होते हैं, दे आर नॉर्मली स्मॉल अमाउंट ट्रांसफर, राइट. इंटरनेट बैंकिंग के थ्रू रीजनेबली लार्ज अमाउंट्स ऑफ ट्रांसफर हो सकते हैं इन रिटेल बैंकिंग. बट फ्रॉम वायर एंड एसीएच देयर आर ह्यूज अमाउंट्स ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शंस, मे बी अ नेशन स्टेट टू नेशन स्टेट ट्रांजैक्शंस हो रही होती हैं. So each of these channel carries their own persona, and that characteristic defines the fraud schemes जो कि उस channel में हो रही होती हैं. So unless you have spoken to somebody who is an expert of, for example, ATM channel, and unless your model embeds their expert knowledge within the model, it is very likely that the model will produce a lot of false positives, or maybe you cannot achieve that kind of a hit rate जो कि आप उस ह्यूमन नॉलेज जो ह्यूमन एक्सपीरियंस है उसको यूज करके अचीव कर सकते हैं. लेट्स टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ ए टिपिकल सर्जन. रेजिडेंसी में दे गो थ्रू थाउजेंड्स एंड थाउजेंड्स ऑफ पेशेंट्स, एंड द ओनली रीजन इज कि व्हेन दे गो आउट ऑन देयर ओन, so their diagnosis is as good as it can be. and you're basically, you're basically understanding and absorbing or maybe learning all that aspect. Or machine ke case mein, as much a data set, as much of a depth and as much the breadth of the data set is, the more accurate the data set would be. So when it comes to payment fraud, the sophistication or maybe the complexity of data set is not really critical. But what matters is how good or how vast or deep your data set is. The more data set that you have, the better your results would be. Because we are talking here the movement of money, and any go or no go decision could have consequences. We saw the वो जो Bank of Bangladesh का था couple of years ago, where they were breached and Swift messaging system के through I think $80 something million were transferred to a Far East की side. So the vastness and depth of data set of course comes in very handy. And the last thing that's very important in payment fraud detection models is adaptive learning. Adaptive learning is if your payment system detects a fraud, traditionally होता ये है कि उस flagged transaction को pass on कर दिया जाता है एक fraud analyst को. Fraud analyst उस पे अपना analysis करता है and that is then handed over to a fraud investigator. Fraud investigator, by the way, it can go directly to the fraud investigator also. Fraud investigator then digs deep and compares all the variables, and with good solution, they can go into the model if it's a white box solution, and they can look into the rules that resulted in the flagging of the transaction. और उसकी बेस पे फिर एक ह्यूमन एक्सपर्ट डिसीजन लेता है कि सिस्टम की ये जो go या no go decision थी, was it right or not? And in that process, the fraud investigator may discover new insights into that transaction. Now, at this point, a good AI model would make sure कि जो human investigator है उसकी input भी वापस model में आ रही है. And that essentially relates to जो मैंने आपसे बात की domain knowledge की. So a domain knowledge of a fraud investigator is also something that a good AI model should use. These are some of the things that sort of industry values, and these are the opportunities that are out there in the business side as well as the academic research side that are available. Now I'll shift gears here and I'll present an opportunity that we are right now working in that I'm interested in, and that's safer payments. Safer payments is a solution. There are different solutions in the industry. We have got FICO, we've got Falcon by Visa. Visa, जो payment card company है, they have their own payment fraud solutions also. Similarly, there are Oracle के हैं financial crime suite, and IBM का है. उसके अंदर one of the products that I'm really interested in is safer payments. And we are helping our customers to protect their payment ecosystem from these fraudulent transactions. And what we are proposing is establishing a safer payment center of expertise where we help the interested individuals in not just planning and learning the technology, but also going out in marketing and selling this technology. And there are essentially 5 key phases. The first step that you can do in this center of excellence is you can come in and you can help us plan how you want to work or how you can help the customers reduce their payment fraud. In planning, essentially, there are a couple of steps involved. So you come up, we have a system called BMS. It's a business management system, essentially an ERP, internal ERP that we use. And if you're interested in being a part of Safer Payments, the Center of Excellence, there are a couple of steps involved. You come in, you sign up on the BMS, and then you make a payment or product offering plan. Anything that you want to do, of course, you want to make a plan. So this plan may you first create a roadmap as to how you would help the customers in protecting their payment ecosystem. Then you discuss with us, and then we finalize that plan through the BMS system. Once we have established a baseline, then we help you learn this solution. And there are different resources available. In this particular solution, Safer Payments, this is an IBM solution. So IBM, it's a huge company, and they have so many resource centers available online where you can find tons of technical and domain knowledge. and that really helps you understand the solution. So as far as learning is concerned, there's really no limitation of the content that is available, and will help you do that. So you can go to the Seismic portal, you can go to the partner world, and I'll show these to you in a minute. And then you can take these courses and badges that culminate in an exam. So if you do learning on your own, that's fine. But what if that learning is verifiable? And that's what the customer sees. Okay, do you have any course or badge on safer payments or not? And you know, we if you complete these successfully, in case these are paid exams, we reimburse the cost also. And then we have a specific portal where we have very focused safer payments collateral available. I'll get out of this and share with you. So this is Seismic, and we'll have to log in again. Just give me a second. Seismic जो है, it is essentially an online resource center where anything that you want to learn, you can pretty much find all of it here. So in this case of safer payments, if any one of you is interested to join the Center of Excellence, you will have access to this platform. And what you do is you simply go in and type, and you find all these reports, and these are tagged to help you find the most relevant results. So for example, if you're learning, if you want to find the material that will help you learn, so you check this box and it shortlists only that content that is for learning. If you are talking to a customer, but the customer is at a discovery stage, so you can tick this box, and so on. So this is the Seismic portal, which you can come in and learn safer payments. And there's a whole ton of materials here: reading materials, video materials, audio materials. There are case studies, customer testimonials, and you know, labs कैसे करनी है, safer payments को install, deploy कैसे करना है, customize कैसे करना है, वगैरह वगैरह. Similarly, there's a box folder जो मैंने भी आपको mention किया, and this is essentially a repository of anything safer payments. If you're interested, so you can get access to this, and you know, so there's a whole set of trainings available, workshops available, इनकी recordings पड़ी हुई हैं. If you are interested in becoming a domain expert, of course, probably you want to head into a payment company, but if you want to get an understanding, there is a whole collection of fraud 101 series where you understand के fraud ecosystem कैसे काम करता है, and then you can maybe take a deep dive into the technology. So इसी तरह IBM का partner world है. Partner world is essentially another tool that we as IBM business partners is available, and that has another series of tons of materials that you can get access to. So the reason these are important is because if you want to excel in the Center of Excellence, the first step that you need to do after planning is learning the solution. And these are some of the repositories that are available. The third step is marketing. So once you have established a plan and you have learned the solution, what you can do is you can start making money. And the way we help you do this is by, for example, if you write a blog on safer payments, that's a form of digital marketing, and we reimburse for that. In fact, all of these things, this is reimbursable if you run social media marketing, email marketing, webinars or seminars, and so on. These are paid opportunities. And of course, this clearly you have the repositories and data and coaching available from our side that will help you deliver these. Once you have marketed the solution, the next outcome of marketing is where a bank or a customer or a payment company or a card company or a POS company starts talking to you. And that's where you want to prepare these presentations. So if you can create good presentations. If you can present to the client, you're more than welcome to do that for us in this center of excellence. Now, these could be technical presentations or business presentation. What that means is that even if you do not have a technology background, you're not interested in writing any AI programs, you're not interested in learning the technicalities in safer payments, you can present on the business side and you can connect with the business executives of the client. So that's one skill that is paired. If you are a technical person, these are some of the areas that you can help in. You can help us install the solutions at customer sites. You can help us deploy the solution, configure the solution, administer and develop. Now, all of these are unique skill sets in themselves, and you can become an expert of all of these over a number of years, or maybe you can start with installing of the solution and then, in a phased manner, go to the other steps. This is again another paid opportunity in becoming a solution architect. A solution architect is essentially somebody जिसको के अब वो इतना expert हो चुका है, वो इन सारे phases से गुजर चुका है जो number 2 पे मैंने लिखी हुई है, and they can go and talk to a payment company, find their payment fraud problems and propose a solution. उसमें technical architecture, component architecture, layers क्या होंगी, and so on, and how will that integrate into the banking systems. That is sort of the, the one of the milestones, a bit far away into the journey that you can look up to achieve. इसी तरह, if talking to customers and finding their pain points is in itself a skill, and under this center of excellence you can learn that. So if you're a faculty or a student or maybe an industry, you may want to develop the skill here because that will come in really handy in any line of work that you're in. Customer may ask you to do proof of concepts. You can do that. That's a paid opportunity. You can demonstrate safer payments. That's another paid opportunity. RFPs. RFPs is an interesting thing because banks and these companies, their procurement is most part because these are big ticket solutions and they are done through competitive bidding. Or वहाँ पे a bank or a payment company could issue an RFP. And if they do so, preparing a response to RFP is a humongous task and a very good learning activity also. If you're interested, you have good writing skills, you have good understanding of the product, you have a good skill on spreadsheets and Word documents. So you can help us do that, and that's another paid opportunity. And preparing project plans. Now, once a customer gives you a purchase order, you need to put your head down and start creating a project plan. Essentially, pehle hota hai, but of course you flush it out. So creating project plans is another thing that you can do. And these are very high level simplified things. Each of these is then made up of a number of other tasks that you need to do. So these are the sell skills that you can help us take to the customer, and these are all paid opportunities. And lastly, if you are really if you're somebody that wants to help others learn this solution, because you have been teaching previously and that's something you're really interested in, so you can leverage that ability in this center of excellence. And the way you can do is कि आप अपने fellows को, अपने fellow faculty को, colleagues को, students को, you help them learn this solution. You train the customers जिनके पास ये deployed है, उनको training देना. That could be a paid opportunity. You could conduct client workshops, or you can even go on to create learning materials. You're so good at it कि अब IBM आपसे कह रहा है कि यार ये हमारा नया release आ रहा है और अब आप इसका learning material बना दें. These are some of the things that are available, and if any one of you is interested, because this is an exciting area, और जिस तरह COVID के साथ and the way remote work and everything remote is becoming a norm, digital transactions, digital payments are going to increase manifold. उसके साथ ही payment fraud is going to go up also, and these payment companies are going to be increasingly looking for skills जो कि उनको counterpart solutions बनाने में, OEM solutions को deploy करने में, administer करने में, and so on, help कर सकें. So with this, I'll stop, and I really hope this was a useful spend of your time. If you feel there's a question or a query, you're more than welcome to unmute and share with us. And I'll stop sharing. So any questions, any queries, any comments? And if not, that's fine also. We do normally have an introduction session at the end of each SIG session. So what I'll do is I'll go down the participants list and I'll take your name. And if you're interested in sharing with us uh, why you are interested in AI, and if you have any ideas that you want to bounce off, so please feel free to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and share us with those. I see we have Ahmed Khan with us. Ahmed, would you care to unmute and share with us about your interest in AI? Mariam Azhar, Abid Ali, Umar Siddiq, Shah Nawaz. I guess everybody wants to stay on mute, and that's fine. So with this, I'll stop and thank you very much for joining this session. Next week, we'll be having a session on cloud technologies. So if you're interested, you're welcome to join. Keep looking out for Ahmed Jafar's emails. The next AI session is going to be 4 weeks from now, and we'll be sharing some pretty exciting stuff. So thank you again for joining. If you have any questions or queries, I think Ahmed has pasted the email address in the chat window, and you can reach out to us always. Thanks again, and have a good evening.